If you guys don't know me, my name is Veronica Seguin. I'm a fourth year at UVA, and just so happens when I was a wee 15-year-old lad, I happened to win one of Food Network's TV shows called Chopped, by sheer luck, truly, because I was one of 16 chefs, and the 15 others wanted to go to culinary school, and I was just there for like fun. Truly, I want to be an actress, and I'm studying common drama now at UVA, but none of that has to do with cooking. So why did I win? I ask myself that every single day. But I think with good practice and like a really great family heritage with my Italian side of my family, it taught me and imbued me with a lot of cooking tips and tricks that I'd love to pass on to you guys today. So I've chosen today that I think we should do the pasta marinara recipe with some garlic bread, because it is a very basic recipe, but with a few simple ingredients, you can amp up the flavors in, yes, boxed pasta and jarred sauce. But with some fresh ingredients that help emphasize the ingredients already present in the sauce, you can make it taste fresh and restaurant quality, which is what we're going for exactly. So what we're gonna start off by doing is chopping the onion. So we have a yellow onion here, and what we wanna do is cut it down the middle, and then you see that there's the root part, and then there's this top part. It has like a little stem coming out of it. What you want to do is cut off the stem portion. And what I always like to do is have a little bowl on the side to put the trash in, just so that you don't have to go back and forth between the trash can and your cutting board. So as we see here, we have cut the stem side of the onion off, and we have the root side. So what we're gonna do is peel off the 2 or 3 outer layers. Pardon me while I get a grip on this onion, geez. Okay, so I'm peeling it, and I'm just putting it into the trash receptacle, my little bowl, if you will. There, we have 1 peeled onion. Now we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. So all I'm gonna do is cut off the stem portion, put that in my trash, and peel. And there's really no tricks or tips for peeling the onion. It's just, you got to get your hands down and dirty and start peeling. That's what cooking is, just braving it in the wild world of food. Anyways, so what we're going to do now is you'll see that there is a wide surface area cross section of the onion. What we're going to do in order to get a good dice, you're going to chop across. So down, watch your fingers here. You might want to grab it like this. Chop at least 2 to 3 lines down the cross section. Then what you want to do is turn the onion like so, with the root facing to your left and the bottom surface area facing to your right, and chop lengths from the top. So what we're essentially doing is creating a 3-plane cutting surface. So you cut it from the X, you cut it from the Y, and then you cut it from the Z. And that helps create the chop. So look, we cut it 3 special ways, and it comes out in diced onions. It's magical. Put that into your trash receptacle. And now what we're gonna do is save the onions in a little bowl right here. And all I do is just scrape it in. Oop, we have a man overboard. That's what happens when we are cooking fast. Okay. So what we're gonna do next is do the same thing with the other half of the onion. Cross, whoop, cross. And also, don't let yourself be beguiled. If you cut yourself while cooking, it doesn't mean you're a bad chef. I cut myself 3 times in the first 5 minutes of Chopped. It was embarrassing because they had to put a little finger condom on my finger, and I kept it afterwards in the hotel and was like, what is this? Very interesting to me. Okay, so we're gonna add the onions into here. But before we start chopping the garlic, I want to salt the pasta water and also tell you a little bit about putting wine in the pasta water. So what we're gonna do now is I'm coming over to the boiling pasta, and I'm gonna pour in about 1 cup to 1.5 cups of white wine. If you do not have white wine, I recommend using chicken broth, vegetable broth, beef broth, whatever you prefer. But obviously the Italians like to throw in wine whenever they can, and it adds a little bit of a hearty flavor to the noodles itself if you don't want them to just be plain. So I'm gonna just glug in about a cup and a half of wine. Obviously, be 21 in order to purchase the wine beforehand, but you don't have to be 21 to consume this meal because the wine cooks off. So now, there's a reason that was in the bag. I'm gonna throw in about 3 to 4 tablespoons of table salt because we want to get the salt water nice and salty. That was backwards. The pasta water nice and salty. That way the noodles will be infused with flavor from the get-go, and they're not just going to be plain like little bundles of Play-Doh, which is what they taste like to me when they're plain. Okay, now we're going to chop some garlic, and what I'm going to do actually is put half of the garlic I'm chopping in the onion bowl and the other half in this bowl, which we're going to use for making the garlic bread. Which, speaking of the garlic bread, I'm going to go preheat the oven to 400. Just because it takes a brick, so we want to be ahead of the game. All right, so now what we're going to do to chop garlic, I'm going to show you guys a trick that both Giada De Laurentiis and my Nona taught me. What you're going to do is cut from the top. You see all the little garlics peeking out. Throw that into your trash receptacle. And then start peeling off little cloves with your fingers. And throwing the garlic paper or the skin into your trash. So I'm just going to continue peeling. I always hate dealing with the little tiny bulbs of garlic because they're just so difficult to crack open and honestly not worth it. So what I'm going to do is just throw them into the little trash bowl because we have 2 cloves of garlic here to deal with, and we're not going to skimp out on that. All right, so as I was saying earlier, with the pasta sauce, what we're doing is highlighting flavors that are already present in the sauce to begin with. So when you think of pasta sauce, you think of oregano, tomatoes, olive oil, basil. Yeah, all of those, yes, they do taste jarred a little bit when you have them straight from the jar. But if you add the very same ingredients back into the sauce, it helps highlight the sweetness and saltiness of the garlic, basil, and tomato. And that's exactly what we're going for. Because if you think about it, in restaurants, they make a base sauce and then they just add a bunch of fresh garlic and tomatoes to it right before serving. It's not like they're making individual batches all the time. So essentially, they're dealing with their own version of jarred sauce. And here we're dealing with our own version, which is why I got a good brand. It is Mezzetta. Love Mezzetta. Okay, so I didn't demonstrate this closely enough last time, but what I'm going to do here is take the flat edge of the knife and just smash the garlic. Smash, smash. You want to hear a crack because you want the paper to split open and you want the garlic clove to be ready to be peeled. Before I move forward, actually, I think it's rude of me not to ask if anyone has any questions or is curious about the process we're going through right now. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, please feel free. Well, in that case, I have plenty of stories to continue telling, and I do not mind talking. So let's see. Some other stories I can tell you about Chopped. So yeah, besides the fact of being the only non-culinary school kid, I was also the only military kid, which has nothing to do with cooking, but I believe that my worldliness and being able to travel like to various different places and live in various different places throughout my lifetime has also made me opportune to become a good chef in having tasted so many different culinary worlds. Whew. And at this point, you're going to start smelling the wine cooking out of the pasta water, and it's just the beginning of a good meal when you smell a good wine. Okay. So I've chopped all of this garlic. Now what I'm going to do is going to do a rough chop. I know you should mince it, but I do enjoy a good rough chop of garlic, which is just doing this, lining them all up and chopping. So I'm currently in a class called Dracula. It's one of the most popular classes at UVA, and usually 4th years take it. And luckily I got in And we're learning all about the origins of vampirism and how it stems from Slavic country and Transylvania, and how the like archetypes of vampires have come to be, such as like the widow's peak or the cape or the fangs. And none of these were in the original lore, which was Slavic culture. So how did these things come to be? And why I bring this up, because one of the things in the lore is that aside from nailing and staking the vampires in their coffins in original fables and folklore, they would sprinkle the graves with garlic and sprinkle the graves with rice, because if the vampire woke up in the middle of the night, they'd be overwhelmed with how many things they have to count. Which is why, by coincidence, the Count on Sesame Street, who's also a vampire, loves to count. What a fun little inclusion there. Okay, so we have chopped the garlic. I'm going to put half of it into the pasta. No, we're going to be very garlicky, actually. So we're going to put half of it into the onion bowl. And like I said, the other half is going to go into this bowl, which is what we're going to be using for the garlic. So right now, I'm actually going to take a break and take the tomato and score it. So scoring is just cutting a little cross into the bottom. This is a dull knife. That's okay. So we're going to score it, and this makes it easier. So after we drop it in the boiling water, it'll be peelable. So we're coming over here. I have the tomato, and I've scored the bottom, and dropping it into the boiling water will make the skin shrivel, and it'll then be easier to peel once we take it out. In the interim, I'm going to get a bowl of ice to drop the tomato into. That's a failure. We are no longer going to be getting ice. We will be peeling the tomato with our bare hands. There is no ice. Okay. Okay, so I've taken the tomato out with a little sieve spoon, and I put it into the bowl. And I'm going to let it sit for a minute. Yeah, okay, yeah, we're gonna let it sit for a minute. In the interim, I'm going to start chopping the garlic again, and we're gonna get going on the garlic bread, which we have the oven preheating for at the moment. It is currently at 250, so we're making good progress. Oh, yeah, so talking about another Chopped story, I hope none of the producers are listening in, because they definitely hate me for saying this. But yes, everything is scripted. They script everything. They want drama. It's reality TV. I remember them coming up to me in one of the last rounds, and they were like, Veronica, you don't have a compelling story. We want America to cry. We want them to cry for you. They want you to win. And I was like, okay, but you're also telling the other girl the same thing. So I feel a little betrayed, but that's how the reality TV world works. Anyways, some of the things they scripted for me were like things I'd have to say to the contestants in the break room, like, oh, you're going down, or it's over for you, bucko. That was definitely not one of the words or phrases they wanted me to say, but we have a little buzzing in the background. Okay, again, I'm just smashing the garlic. Things are gonna start getting more exciting. This is all just prep. The prep is the worst part, but it can be fun with conversation. Okay. So I'm just peeling the garlic again after smashing it. The lovely Tiffany and Michael are currently fixing an issue with the fridge. It is out of sorts, but we will be back in fashion in no time. All right, the problem has been fixed. We are back on a roll. So another story I could tell you from Chopped is, I don't know if any of you have seen the episode, probably not, because I mean, you probably have a lot better things to do in your free time. Anyways, when I was on the show in the first round, there was a kid named Danny, and Danny was this hot shot from New Jersey. He thought he knew everything about cooking, and he was so snarky and rude to the judges, so obstinate. Like, they took us on a tour of the New York studio the day before filming, and he like waltzes over to touch the ice cream machine, and he's like, "Oh, I love ice cream machines." And the producer was like, "Get your hands off the equipment, bro. What are you doing?" Then during filming, guess what he did? He takes a big, like, Chopped, the chopping block knife. It's like much bigger than this. It's a cleaver, essentially. He takes the cleaver and just walks around like this in the middle of the kitchen, which is the biggest kitchen no-no, especially when you're in a crowded, high pressure situation such as Chopped. That's not the time to be messing around. Okay, yeah, back on track. I'm just chopping the garlic, a rough chop, into slivers. I don't know if any of you are first years or second years and have experience with the Castle, but the Castle likes to fry little bits of onion and put it on some of their toppings. Speaking of the Castle, it could be a lot better. I'll say it. I will say it. Okay, so this is all the garlic we need for the garlic bread, but we're going to be adding more garlic powder just to really accentuate the garlic flavor and pack in as much as possible. So this leads into the natural flavor, and then the garlic powder later will just pack more of a garlic punch. Okay, now that the tomato is cooled, I'm going to peel it, and hopefully I will be successful at this. Yes, clean peel, clean peel. See, even without the ice bath, we made it work. So the reason why we want to peel the tomato is because the peel itself will get really papery, and you don't want to taste that in the sauce. So you peel the tomato, and now we have a naked tomato, if you will. I'm going to cut it in half and scoop out the guts, because we don't want the guts either. So all I'm going to do is just use my hands, again, getting down and dirty. I'm going to chop off the little stem first because I forgot to do that. Not me making a flaw. I am not perfect, and I'm not the best of chefs, but I do know a few tips and tricks. Okay. So anyways, we're going to get all of the guts out. I'm going to bring over the trash bowl. See, the trash bowl is getting nice and full, and then that's just signifying how many trips to the trash can you didn't have to take. So that's a win-win in my time. Also saving you tons of time in the kitchen. Okay. Next bit. Next bit. All right, and now I'm going to put the tomatoes aside in a separate little bowl. And we are going to begin on the garlic bread mix. Okay, so actually, 1 second. What we're going to do is drop the pasta in the pasta water. We're going to drop the pasta in. We're also going to turn on the stove for sauteing the onions and garlic. So I forgot to demonstrate, but the pasta I'm using is Italian Tritolo. I've never heard of it, but it looks really good, and I'm always curious about new pasta shapes. So why not? Okay. So one thing you always want to do when you are cooking with pasta is you stir it for the first minute it is in the pot, because that releases the starches and ensures that they don't congeal or stick to each other. I'm going to turn this real quick so y'all can see me. Yay! Welcome back to the party, everyone. We are making pasta. So this is tritoli, and yeah, just stirring until you see murky lake water, essentially. Obviously, it tastes better than lake water, but you want it to be murky because that means the starches have been released. So I'm gonna keep stirring this. And what we're veering to do next is make the garlic bread mixture and also saute the garlic and onions for the sauce. So we're gonna be multitasking thrice, which we love to do. Okay. So the pasta's boiling. And I'm gonna turn on the saucepan. Oh, by the way, forgot to tell you guys, so you all know how to make pasta and pasta sauce, right? You just throw in the sauce into a saucepan, let it come to a boil, pour it over your boiled water. You probably assume by now what we're doing is elevating that, obviously to be restaurant quality, but I wanted to do a demonstration of what could be versus what is, if that makes sense. So what is just the pasta and the pasta sauce as is. And then what could be is what we're making together. So I'll do a side-by-side demonstration of what they look like in the end. Okay, back over here. I'm going to get the garlic. I'm also going to cut half a stick of butter. No, I don't know. I don't know if I want this to be super buttery or super cheesy, but I could do both. I'm gonna do half a stick of butter. Okay. So we got half a stick of butter in there. And I'm gonna add some Parmesan in a second. I'm gonna dump in a bunch of garlic powder. And I'm gonna put this in the microwave so the butter melts for about 45 seconds. Okay, while that's going, I'm gonna go back and stir the pasta just to make sure we're not congealing or sticking together. We're looking good, looking good. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bowl because what we're gonna do when we strain the pasta is a little trick I like to call saving the pasta water. Because saving the pasta water helps you incorporate both the sauce and the pasta into a wonderful happy marriage. Because if the pasta doesn't recognize something of its own kind in the sauce, it will not mix well. It will just have this sauce on the peripheral. Oh man, that smells like garlic. Nothing like roasted garlic and butter. I mean, I'm a sucker for Papa John's garlic sauce, I'll say it, but nothing beats this. Here, let me show you on this camera. Look at that. Ooh, that melted butter and the garlic. Love to see it. So what we're gonna do now is I'm going to add in an entire package of whole milk mozzarella shredded cheese. If you so desire, you can use low moisture part skim, but I prefer the full fat flavor just because we're treating ourselves tonight, boys. So once we have the whole bag of that in, I'm gonna add a couple handfuls of Parmesan. I get shredded Parmesan already. It's still good quality, but you don't have to go through the hassle of shredding it yourself. So we have that ready. I'm actually going to get a new cutting board because I don't want to be chopping on a wet cutting board at the moment. I'm going to chop in a bunch of parsley for this garlic bread because we want it to be fresh and flavorful. So yeah, y'all know how to chop parsley. You just do a classic little chop. Okay, so we have our parsley. And we have our cheese garlic mixture. I'm gonna mix it up and then discern how much olive oil we should add. So this is gonna make a really gooey, cheesy mix, and putting it in the garlic bread will just make it melt into the nooks and crannies, and it'll be glorious. I have never made garlic bread this way before, but I found a recipe online and really wanted to try it. So y'all are trying it with me for the first time, which is super exciting. Okay, now I have the olive oil and I'm gonna put in about a 1/4 cup. There we go. Was about a 1/4 cup. Okay, good stuff. All right, I'm gonna take this time now to ask if anyone else has any questions, if anyone has any concerns or wants to know about other ingredients that could possibly be used. There are so many flavor combinations you could do with this, truly. Okay. Back to the pasta, just stirring. And I'm gonna take one out just to test it to see if it's ready. Woo. Oh my goodness. You can really taste the, oh, sorry. Oh goodness. That was really hot and it went down my throat so slowly. I really think I can handle heat. Not spice, I can handle spice, but I really think I can handle like temperature heat, and then I can't ever. Okay, so back on the train, we're gonna take our loaf of Italian bread right here, and we're gonna cut it in half lengthwise, just like you'd cut a hot dog bun. Not that anyone's ever cut a hot dog bun because they come pre-sliced. So cut it in hot dog fashion. Now we lay it open. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna take our happy little mixture and put it all over one side of the bread and then close it up. And as you can see, it's just like really sticking together well. It's gonna be a very thick spread inside, and all of the butter and cheese and olive oil is gonna melt into it. Oh, it's gonna be glorious. Okay, I'm actually gonna have a little bite just because I want to. Oh my God. Shut the front door. That was so good. Okay, so we have our bread ready to go. All I'm gonna do, I have a pre-made cookie sheet with some tin foil on it, as you can see here. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap the bread in tin foil and then put it onto the sheet. You guys have seen like at grocery stores how they have the Italian or French loaf in a tin foil bag and then you just shove it in the oven. We're doing the same thing. But then again, we're making it restaurant quality. So we're gonna continue on that track. Just laying out the bread. Wrapping. And I'm gonna put that into the oven in a bit. I'm gonna check on the pasta to make sure we're in a good realm of texture. Looks like we're about ready to go.
I think Rick said that he had something to show us.
Oh my gosh, yes, Rick, please do. I want to see.
We love to see good work in progress.
I flashed something up a moment ago, but just for a second. I've got my pasta. I prepared it ahead of, let's see if I can find the camera here, a little early. So, and I used rigatoni, and I've got the spices. I don't have enough oregano in that, but and a little more parsley on top. But it's starting, and I'm cooking my bread. I didn't have a loaf, so I used wide sliced loaf slices, 3-4 of them on a pan, flat pan. So that's in the oven now. I'll flash it up in a bit when it's done.
Yes, that sounds excellent. And also love the fact that you prepared the pasta ahead of time, because it can seriously sit out for as long as you need it to while you're making the sauce. Sorry, this is an absolute mess. A good chef always cleans up after themselves. That is my fault, everyone. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is bring our cooking apparatus over here so you guys can see me making the sauce. That's about as close as I can get without compromising the plastic. So, man, this is not heating up as much as I'd like it to. Okay, moving right along. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're waiting for this to heat up, but we're gonna put olive oil, garlic, onion, and butter in the pan, wait for it to saute. We need it to turn a translucent, a translucent color, and then we'll get a move on. Okay, so I'm gonna drop in a bit of oil, just enough to cover the bottom of the pan. And by that, I mean swirl it around and it should cover the entire surface area. You can already see it starting to steam, which is good. I'm gonna drop in the onions and the garlic. You hear that sizzle? That's what I like to hear. Give it a quick stir. Just make sure all of the veggies are coated in oil. Needs more oil. Oh, by the way, while Rick was talking and sharing his lovely pasta with us, I set aside the pasta water, and all you have to do when you're doing that is just set aside a little bowl in the sink and pour out some of the water, and then proceed to strain your pasta in the normal strainer. That's all I did. Nothing too fancy. Okay. Things are looking up, lads. We are doing great. We're keeping on time. I'm going to add some butter to this mix because we love butter. So as you can see, the onions are starting to get a little bit opaque, which is what we want to go for. We just want them to be more translucent than opaque, which is the very definition of sauteing, if you will. So yeah, just make sure your pan is centered on the stove and continue stirring. I'm gonna let this go for a second, and we're gonna come back over yonder to chop up some of the tomatoes. So here we have our tomato sides, which is just what we want. I'm going to cut them in a julienne style, long ways. And like I was saying, how we cut the onion on the X, Y, and Z plane, we just cut this on the X and Y plane because there's no need to do the Z. So one mistake that a lot of chefs make when they're doing savory dishes is they forget to balance out the saltiness with sweetness. And you can achieve that either by adding in sweet vegetables or by adding in sugar or honey itself. And what we're gonna do for this pasta sauce is add in a couple tablespoons of sugar. Sorry, a couple teaspoons of sugar. Tablespoons would be way too much. And we're gonna add in the fresh tomato, as you've seen, because the fresh tomato adds a nice sweetness that the cooked tomato sauce doesn't. And like we said before, we're just highlighting flavors that already exist in the sauce, but we're just adding more of a punch. Okay, this is smelling great. This needs to cook for a little longer. In the meantime, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna empty out our trash bowl and I'm gonna clean up a little bit. I'm trying to think of another story I can tell you guys from Chopped. Oh, the nicest thing they did was they paid for, obviously, they paid for our lodging, they paid for our transportation, they'd have us Uber all across the city. And whenever I wanted food on set, especially after I'd won a round, they'd always ask me, what type of pizza do you want? And I got whatever pizza I wanted from Chelsea Market. I don't know if you have ever been to Chelsea Market or not, but it's in the meatpacking industry district of New York City in Chelsea in Manhattan. And it used to be home to a lot of, obviously, meatpacking locations, but also the Nabisco Cracker Factory. And that is where Chelsea Market, Food Network's hub, is located. So Test Kitchen America, Chopped, and several other shows are filmed at the Chelsea Market Studios. And that's where I was for Chopped. So it was really cool as a young 15-year-old to go to New York City and be on a TV show. As you can imagine, it was super exhilarating and definitely a cool experience for sure. All right, so while these are just glazing up and getting a little bit more translucent, I'm gonna shift the perspective a little bit so you can see the pot. All right. Now what I'm going to do is add in some red pepper flakes. Woo. Red pepper flakes for the win. I like spice, so we're adding in a decent amount. And then some oregano. And the reason why you add in the spices now instead of when the sauce is like fully fledged and all together and married is because the spices won't get distributed evenly, and it's better to cook them in the oil with the onions. That way the aromatics come out. It's all in the flick of the wrist, baby. Okay. So this is looking about done to me. I'm starting to see some color on the onion and some color on the garlic as well. So what we're gonna do now is add in the tomatoes. And I'm going to put the garlic bread in the oven. She's going for 15 minutes, folks, and then we're done with the garlic bread. Okay, so just mixing in the vegetables, the tomatoes. What I like to do sometimes is I can add in mushrooms, preferably porcini or shiitake, and oyster mushrooms are also so good if you guys want to do those instead. I know Kroger at least or Wegmans sells a variety mushroom mix, so you can have all three of them if you so desire. This is looking good. It smells heavenly. And what we're gonna do now is add in the sugar. So I have just regular granulated sugar right here. You can also use honey if you'd like, but I recommend using 75% of what it calls for in the recipe, because honey has a lot more dense of sweetness than granulated sugar does. You also don't want the dish to be overwhelmed by honey. So just adding in about 1 to 2 teaspoons of sugar, and then mixing that into our little sauce mixture is going to help them glaze over more, because the sugars will start to crystallize. Not crystallize, you know what I'm saying. I don't know my cooking terms as well as I should.
I think Rick is done cooking, so he's done.
Oh my gosh, how is Rick doing? Oh, it looks good. So I'm adding in a bit of the sauce, and I'm gonna add in the rest of the sauce to a small pan for our taste comparison. So one of the worst things about cooking with pasta sauce is that it leaves so much residue on the inside. How do you fix that? Well, luckily, we have a little trick called using the pasta water. As you can see, I have the starchy pasta water here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pour it into the jar of pasta. This kills 2 birds with 1 stone, because not only are we getting our pasta water fix in, but we're also saving as much of and using as much of the pasta sauce as possible. So. All right, back to stirring. It's gonna take a while for it to boil now, because we've just added in some room temperature liquids. All right. I'm just better straining the pasta over here. Nothing too exciting going on. Okay. After this comes to a more violent boil, I'm going to add in some wine, and then we're going to add in some fresh basil. All right, does anyone have any questions or any comments? Rick, do you want to show us more of your dish or talk about your experience cooking it?
Sure, let me unmute for just a second.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely, lovely. So let's see if I can get all of it in the picture. There we go. I didn't have a loaf of bread, but I had slices of bread that I used. Had plenty of cheese, had 9 or 10 cloves of garlic that I minced up and split. Had to use parsley powder, parsley flakes. Did what I could to get a nice bowl with some, what is that, rigatoni, I think. And it looks like a great dish, and it tastes wonderful.
I'm so glad to hear it. And I'm excited to hear what you think of the garlic bread too.
I'll get to that in just a minute and let you know.
Absolutely. All right. So what we have going on here is a couple things. We're warming up the pasta sauce that's just plain, and we're still cooking off the wine in the bigger pasta sauce. I also have the pasta water and, the pasta straining over in the sink. And we have the garlic bread cooking in the oven. It has 10 more minutes left to go. And yeah, while we're waiting, I'll think of another story I can tell you guys. Just keeping it fun and fresh. Oh, there was a lot of heat and tea going on the night the Chop Team tournament aired. I was 15 and I was a junior in high school the night it aired. I remember I went on Twitter and just searched my name with chopped after it, and there were so many hate messages, like saying I was a really bad chef, saying this like B word shouldn't be on the show. And I was a little baby 15-year-old seeing all this. So it's really, in as much that I experienced like a minor form of cyberbullying, I really understand what like child stars or celebrities go through when they're seeing all of these like torrential, hateful comments online. It can really affect your self-esteem and obviously your self-perception. So I don't know. That also brings us to the argument of like, when is cancel culture like necessary? But we're not going to get into that. That's a whole nother topic for another day.
Lisa asked a question. She said, how do you keep the greens pasta from getting dried out and hard?
Yeah, sure. So what I like to do is, and I'll actually do it right now, but I'm going to put in enough olive oil in the bottom of the big pasta pot to cover the bottom. And then I'm going to throw in the pasta in there with a bit of its pasta water and the olive oil. And we'll accomplish much with that. It will not get dried out. This is a bit difficult, but we're going to make it work. Nice. Nice. Okay, so I'm just stirring up the pasta with the oil. I'm gonna add in a little bit more oil because this is a lot of pasta. You always heard not to coat the, yeah, that is something I've heard as well, but what ends up happening is when you keep the oil in the pasta long enough while you're making the sauce, the pasta will absorb the oil itself, and then the pasta will proceed to absorb the sauce. And we're running out of time a little bit, but what I usually do, and if I had a smaller portion of pasta, is I leave it a little bit al dente and toss it with some olive oil, and then incorporate it into the pasta water and the sauce so that it finishes cooking in the sauce. That way it still absorbs some of the sauce in the cooking process. And it makes for a really good, tasty pasta. Okay. It looks like the sauce is just about ready. I'm going to turn the heat down and I'm going to give it a taste. I'm also going to throw some of the pasta in with the plain sauce. Okay. Now to try the pasta sauce. I'm gonna keep it over here. That's really good. You need some more sugar though. So I'm just adding a little bit more sugar because it is very salty and I don't taste the tomato sweetness as much as I want to. That's why you always test your food before you serve it, because you never know what it will taste like to the general public. Okay. So I'm going to turn off the heat and I'm going to move the pasta sauce into the pot with all of the pasta, just pouring it in. And we're going to give it a good stir. I am sweating so much in here. That's what happens when you cook. You always sweat a ton. Okay. All right, we've got that done. The garlic bread has 4 more minutes on it. I'm gonna take this time to clean up a bit and move on to cutting the basil. All right, does anyone else have any questions or any concerns? That's good. That's really good. Okay. So now for chopping the basil, and I'll show you guys a little trick for chopping basil. So we have some fresh basil here, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it out of the package, and I'm gonna select some pretty big leaves. So here's one big leaf. Here's another big leaf, another leaf. And we're gonna continue to select large leaves, such as these. And what you wanna do is you wanna lay them out flat. So make a little stack of basil paper, if you will. And then you're gonna roll it. Roll it from one edge of the leaf to the other, not from the stem to the tip. Cut off the stems and chop your basil into ribbons. And now, if you see, it's in beautiful little ribbons. Looks like the garlic bread has 1 more minute on it. I'm gonna check the garlic bread and then I'll let you guys know where we're at. Right. She's done. So what we're gonna do now is plate up and then serve. Looking good, smelling good. Love this for us. I wish I could share this meal with you all, but virtually we can share it together. Okay, so let me find some plates. I'm just putting the plain pasta down. It looks good, I'm not gonna lie, but could be better. What I'm noticing, the difference between the one with the pasta water and the one with just the plain sauce is that this sauce, it's like, it's staying juicy, you know what I mean? It's not like congealing or like, you know how when you wash a sweatshirt and it gets pilly? I feel like the same thing can happen to pasta when the sauce like soaks into the pasta too much. Okay, so I'm gonna plate up. Just gonna get a paper towel to clean up the edges. Oh, you know what's a good story I can tell you guys from Chopped? I was a fool, like a good 3 times. Not only did I cut myself 3 times in the first 5 minutes of the tournament, but I also, I burnt my meatballs very badly. And I was using wine in the kitchen as a little 15-year-old, and I burned the meatballs, tried throwing wine in to deglaze the bottom, and it only made the entire meatball taste so burnt. And what's another thing I did? Oh yeah, in 2 rounds, I put uncooked bread on the platter, like just sliced bread, not toasted at all. It was embarrassing. So, you know, sometimes the best of us get the worst of it, but we end up on top because of preparation and skill. Okay, so I'm going to show what I'm gonna plate here. I'm going to put some basil down, and I'm gonna do some Parmesan shreds. A little more basil, just because. So, we have our meal. Very nice. And now we need garlic bread. All right, I want to show you guys the cheese pull. Okay, hold on. Can everyone see? Look at that. Look at that cheese pull. All right. Well, with that, we have our meal. Garlic bread, pasta, basil, and Parmesan. And yeah, pasta marinara with garlic bread. Anyone else have any questions? Anyone wants to know anything glaring or have anything on your mind? Rick, it was a pleasure getting to see your cooking, and I hope you enjoyed it. Everyone else, it was a pleasure to cook for you all, and I hope one day you have the opportunity to make this dish. Tiffany has sent out the information with the recipe in it, so they're all very affordable, very findable ingredients. And like I said, like I got all of this from Kroger, and it was for the entire suite of recipes or suite of ingredients I got, it was only 36 bucks. So very affordable, very delicious.
Thank you so much. This was fantastic. I appreciate the opportunity to show off my normally not very good cooking, and I hope that my wife is impressed. She always likes a hot meal, a good meal when she comes home. So let's hope she survives after this one.
I hope so. And of course, if you're 21 plus, I recommend starting with a bottle of Cab Sauv or Pinot Grigio, depending if you like white or red. But yeah.
Well, thank
With
you.
that,
I'm sorry.
Oh, what are you doing?
I have a Cuvée 719. It's from Ducard Vineyards up in Madison County. It's a place that I work, so it was convenient.
Very nice.
Yeah, thanks again.
Yes, of course. All right, with that, I'll bid you all farewell, and I hope you have an incredible, incredible week. Good luck with the rest of the semester, and finish strong.